What does it mean to be homeless in America? Homelessness in America has been on the front burner in recent times, and rightly so. The humanness in humanity will not allow governments, institutions, and individuals to ignore the plight of fellow humans who are sleeping and living in inhumane conditions. That is why the conversation will continue for a long while. We cannot afford to turn a deaf ear or a blind eye to this predicament. You surely will wonder why we have not lent our voice to the growing concern. That is one of the motivations of this video and others we produce to address the misfortunes of homeless Americans. In this video, we want to answer the question, what does it mean to be homeless in America? The realities of being homeless. It's so easy to misjudge the homeless population in America. The country has projected itself as economically buoyant. People from different countries are running there as greener pastures. It may seem incomprehensible that anyone in a sane condition can slip into homelessness in such a country. For the most part, the homeless don't readily win the sympathies of the common people in their host communities, unless the thoughtful consideration is given to their circumstances. They tend to be neglected by the same people who should aid them. The homeless thus become marginalized with tougher struggles to meet their daily needs. They have no power influence on social norms and affairs. Please blame those communities a little for marginalizing the unhoused. The fortunate housed have only subscribed to some common misconceptions about the unhoused population and can't distinguish between myths and realities. A lot of stereotypes and social stigma have enshrouded the discussions about homelessness. In many cases, the discussions blame the victims of systemic issues. In reality, what we should be discussing is how society can be restructured to be placed to help these marginalized groups access their basic human rights to shelter. That's what we are contributing our quota to in this video. Honestly, we would want you to tell us all you wish to say about the situation in the comments section. And you can be sure that your thoughts and opinions will be valued and may be one of the ways out of this quagmire. In order to do so, however, we must appreciate a bit more what it means to be homeless in America. Defining homelessness in the American context. So what is homelessness? If the people of the 1950s asked this question, you'd be speaking above their heads. It was just an idea then, and a remote possibility that an American could ever say he doesn't have a house. Today, however, the reality confronting us has taught us to define it. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, it's, quote, the state of having no home. Another popular or broader definition of homelessness is the state of having no home or permanent place of residence. Based on these definitions, it can be estimated that there are at least 150 million people across the world who are homeless, while about 1.6 billion people lack adequate or appropriate housing. Data from OECD also ranks the United States in the 11th position for homelessness, behind countries like Australia, Canada, Germany, and Sweden, which are doing a lot better than the US sheltering its citizens. In conceptualizing this scourge, certain expressions are used to describe homeless of various sorts. The expression sheltered homelessness refers to the situation of people who are housed in emergency shelters, transitional housing programs, or safe havens. Unsheltered homelessness describes the situation of people whose primary nighttime locations are public or private places, such as streets, parks, and vehicles, not designated as regular accommodations for people. Chronically homeless individuals are disabled, who are continuously homeless for 1 year or more, or those who have experienced at least 4 episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years, with a combined length of time homeless up to 12 months. It didn't start today. But homelessness is not a problem that started yesterday. Though it might be a vague concept in the 1950s, it had been witnessed seen, though rarely, as far back as colonial times. Yes, a few people were unhoused during the colonial era. However, modern homelessness has its roots in the Great Depression that occurred from 1929 to 1939, when that infamous economic shock impacted most countries. The economic depression, resulting from a major fall in stock prices in the US, caused high levels of job joblessness and poverty. The nationwide unemployment drove many people to the urban cities. It is especially interesting to study the relationship between the growth of urban centers and the rise in homelessness. While the cost of living was rising, wages remained low or even became lower. All these, coupled with mass movement to cities, put pressure on accommodation. It became too expensive for workers to find houses in big cities such as those in New York and California. Meanwhile, people were in desperate need of employment following the Great Depression. The economy was dominated by the service industry, which normally was known for low wages. More and more undereducated, uneducated, and impoverished job seekers were compelled to turn to these low-income jobs. Other jobs were not easy to get in a country that was now a service economy. Thus, laborers were being paid lower wages, leaving them without the ability to cope with the rising costs of housing. Social welfare programs that could have come to their rescue were found to be lacking in funds when these employees turned to them. Though the United States has fully recovered from that economic depression, the resulting homelessness has refused to abate. It has been vacillating between reducing and increasing. But in recent years, the real cause is wider than what is in that historical perspective. The cause in our time. In our time, two major factors are intensifying the pangs of homelessness in the country. They are a lack of low-cost housing and a limited scope of housing assistance programs. Based on national averages, the cost of rental housing is disproportionate to the wages of households with low income. According to 2022 data from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, a full-time worker has to earn, on average, $25.82 hourly to afford a modest two-bedroom rental and $21.21 per hour to afford a one-bedroom. But the national minimum wage is only $7.25 per hour. Imagine how many low-earning families that will fall into homelessness. But the scenario painted is not limited only to the minimum wage earners. The median hourly wages earned by customer service workers, nursing assistants, maintenance and repair workers, home health aides, and retail workers who are earning $17.75, $14.57, $20.76, $14.15, and $14.03 respectively per hour are not sufficient for their housing needs. There are other causes of homelessness apart from poverty and a decline in available public assistance, yet they are often overlooked in the discussion of homelessness. Homelessness is often one of the results of domestic violence. Abused spouses are often compelled to choose between remaining sheltered in abusive homes and opting out into homelessness. Mental illness is also responsible. A study found that 16% of single adult homeless populations are suffering from some form of severe or persistent mental illness. This is apparent in their grooming. Addiction is also controversial there. It's not easy to define the relationship between homelessness and drug or alcohol abuse. One often results in another. Efforts towards ending it. We must acknowledge some successful attempts that have been made to end homelessness in America. Trust them, no state is ignoring this challenge, but Utah's success is worth celebrating and discussing. In 2005, homelessness and panhandling were major issues in Utah. In response, the state implemented a 10-year plan towards eradicating homelessness by 2015. Though the state was unable to completely stop it in 10 years as it projected, it has been extremely successful. By 2015, homelessness in the state was reduced by 91%. While it had 1,932 chronically homeless people in 2005, the figure dropped drastically to 178. The state of Utah executed a program known as the Housing First Policy. This gave the chronically homeless populations in the state free housing. This was a practical decision as it cost them less money than alternative anti-homelessness measures. The state could have met its goal in the 10 years. Unfortunately, the influx of people experiencing homelessness in other states to Utah made it too expensive for the state alone to bear the cost of the increasing homelessness crisis. Isn't that an indication that a national policy using Utah's template of Housing First or another one could be the essentially cheapest option to ending the homelessness crisis in the US? Now that you have seen what it means to be homeless in the US, what do you think can be done about it? Please, let's have your comments on this.